Okay, continuing to read from Voyagers, Chapter 5, The Return to Amente. Pharaoh Akhenaten. Return of the Sphere of Amente, Birth of Pharaoh Akhenaten, Amenephis IV, Templar Seal release from the Anu races, opening the halls of Mente, and Ascension 2409 BC through 1326 BC. The Sphere of Mente could only be re-entered into Earth's core during the periods of dimensional blending with Earth's natural time cycles. The Elohim and Guardians of the Harmonic Universe 2 and Harmonic Universe 3 had orchestrated the frequency fence and Earth's quarantine in 9540 BC in order to prevent the sphere from destroying Earth after it had prematurely descended through the Ark of the Covenant as a result of the Atlantean cataclysm, and since 9540 BC, the Sphere of Amente had been in storage under high security within the frequency bands of the fourth dimension astral planes. The Earth's grid had stabilized and risen in vibrational speed since the times of Atlantis, and the Guardian races made plans to re-enter the Sphere of Amente into Earth's core through the barrier between the third and fourth dimensions during the next natural opening in the time cycle in preparation for opening the halls of Amente. The next natural dimensional blending period will occur in 2409 BC, which marked the half-cycle point from the 4426-year cycle that began in 4622 BC. If the Sphere of Mente could be entered into the third dimension in 2409 BC, it could be the return of the Earth's Dimension 2 core whenever the Earth grid speed rose high enough to hold the frequencies of the blue flame morphogenetic field of Terra, which needed to be embodied on the planet for the halls of Amente to open. As the Melchizedek Cloister race held the imprint for the fifth DNA strand, which would pull fifth-dimensional frequencies into the Earth grid, the opening of the halls of Amente was dependent upon enough of the Melchizedek's and fifth strand hybrid races being present on Earth to raise the grid speed high enough to hold the blue flame. In order to raise the grid speed, 8% of the total global population had to have the fifth strand activated, which meant that the sphere of Amente could not descend into Earth's core until a concentration of cloister Melchizedeks had been born. The second mass birthing wave of Melchizedek cloister souls was scheduled to occur around 1500 BC, so the tentative date for opening the halls of Mente was set for a period following the 1500 BC Melchizedek cloister birthing wave. The Sphere of Amente was released from Dimension 4 by the Elohim in 2409 BC. The 7th through 12th base tones of the third dimension, which had been removed from Earth's morphogenetic field to create the frequency fence, were readjusted. The 8th through 12th base tones of Dimension 3 were re-entered into the Earth's morphogenetic field, reconstructing the frequency fence between the 6th and 8th base tones of the third dimension. This allowed the sphere to enter into the UHF bands of Dimension 3 until it was time to open the halls of Amente. Releasing the sphere from the UHF bands of Dimension 3 did not require synchronization with a natural dimensional blend period, as would have been necessary if the sphere remained in Dimension 4. Following the Melchizedek birthing wave of 1500 BC, plans were made for the opening of the halls of Mente. This opportunity would also be used to begin the reintegration or the reintegrating of the Anu Melchizedek morphogenetic field, which was stored in El Sayon under the Templar seal. It was decided that in the year 1398 BC, an avatar from Harmonic Universe 2 would birth onto Earth through the Anu Melchizedek morphogenetic field, then through the Sphere of Amente, and into the Earth by passing an avatar soul essence who carried at least 9-dimensional frequencies within its personal morphogenetic field. The genetic imprint deviations in the Anu Melchizedek morphogenetic field could be realigned with the harmonic universe 2 frequency patterns. This process would serve to clear the Anu morphogenetic field of its distortions and reintegrate the Anu back into the cloister Melchizedek morphogenetic field in the sphere of Amente. Following the birth of this avatar, the Anu peoples would be released from the Templar seal and would be able to ascend to Terra with the unsealed races when the halls of Amente opened. The birth of the avatar would, quote-unquote, spark or quickly raise the frequency of the Earth grid, which would in turn cause the Earth core. I think this is a spelling error. I think this was meant to say in time cause the Earth's core vibrational rate to increase. So a spark would be released from the Earth's core into the Ark of the Covenant, thereby releasing the sphere of Mente into the Earth's core. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just a spelling error. I think that should say time. The avatar chosen for this project was a pure Anunnaki soul essence appointed by the Syrian Council from Harmonic Universe 2. It was necessary for the Anunnaki to serve this role in order to realign the Anu genetic imprint to its original order. The avatar, born in 1398 BC in the city of Thebes, Egypt, as the son of a Sirius Egyptian father and Anu Melchizedek mother. This child became known as Amenopis, or Amenophis IV, son of Pharaoh Amenopis III and Queen Tai. When the child was grown, he changed his name to Akhenaten. Okay. And that was in 1366 BC, and then it says, Akhenaten, it says he changed his name to Akhenaten and began the Atonist movement within the Egyptian New Kingdom dynastic line. Okay, well, that's pretty interesting. So apparently Akhenaten was a very important key figure in this whole scheme of things. See, they never taught anything about this in the history books at school. At the birth of Akhenaten in 1398 BC, the Ark of the Covenant was opened, and the Spirit of Mente descended into Earth's core from the UHF bands of Dimension 3. 12 years later, in 1386 BC, the blue flame of Amente descended and was embodied by the Melchizedek cloister flameholder, who became the high priest of Akhenaten's Atonist movement. Amenophis III died in 1385 BC when Akhenaten was 13 years old, and Akhenaten served as regent with his mother Queen Tai until 1370 BC, when at age 28 he began his 17-year pharaonic rule. The Melchizedek Cloister Soul Group, who were to serve as keepers of the flame, were birthed into this time period in synchronization with Akhenaten's birth, so they would be in the appropriate places to fulfill their role within the opening of the Halls of Amente. The Halls of Mente opened 12 years later, in 1374 BC, after the frequencies of the embodied flame had stabilized within the Earth's grid. At the age of 24, Akhenaten was taken to the inner earth by the priests of Ur and trained in the process of ascension, which he would conduct after his training was complete. In 1376 BC, at the age of 31, Akhenaten was instructed to relocate his seat of power from Thebes to a location in the Middle Egypt called Tel El Armana, where he constructed the city of Akhenaten in honor of the Aton god and the Law of One. He was led to this location by the priest of Ur, as there, beneath the ground, were portals connecting to the inner earth, through which he could pass into the portals beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, where the Ark of the Covenant and the Halls of Amente were found. there's a bunch of articles just went out today that some scientists, they use some kind of like ground penetrating radar type technology, and they found all these all these chambers and things that is being talked about in this book. Like they found these. They're like 100 yards underground. Like there's huge shafts that go down like over 100 meters underground, and it all connects to this whole entire underground complex down there. Like and it's really, really far down. Like it's massive. And with the ground penetrating radar, like think about a kind of technology that like takes a giant X-ray of what's underground, like miles deep underground, and they found all these chambers, and like no one's been in them, like because I mean I'm sure like there's probably some entrances to them, but they've probably been sealed off by the government or by the initiates, but they're there, and it's proven that they're there because they have all the radar pictures now, and it's kind of going viral right now, like on TikTok, on the internet. A lot of people are talking about this article that just got released with this newer picture, like an X-ray picture of what's underneath there, and it's pretty massive and complex. The Gizan pyramid was still under the control of and the protection of the Amonist priest of Sirius Egypt lineage, among whom much anti-Atonist sentiment stirred. The priest of Ur did not want knowledge of the opening of the halls of Mente known among the general Amonist priest caste, as certain abuses of power and distortion of the original Templar creed had become prevalent in the group, and only cloister Melchizedeks born into the Sirius Egypt elite were permitted knowledge of the opening of Mente. I mean, well, yeah, that's probably still going on to this day. That's why no one knows. People have been spent their entire lives, made careers out of trying to figure out what the heck is going on under there. Written endless books about it, documentaries, TV shows. The new city at Tel El Armana allowed Akhenaten and his followers to go about the business of ascension without drawing the attention of the Sirius priesthood, and almost permitted easy access to the inner earth to Giza, Thebes, Jerusalem, and the city of Ur along the Euphrates River. Using surface-level travel, these locations were hundreds of miles apart, but through the portal of inner earth, these locations could be accessed within minutes. Akhenaten's purpose in coming to Earth was to ensure the opening of the halls of Mente, to realign the morphogenic field with the Anu races so they could be re-entered into the sphere of Mente and orchestrate ascension from Templar Anu, Melchizedeks, and selected other various groups, races, or other various races whose genetic codes were evolved enough to undergo the process. So that's interesting. So according to this, it says like the portals and the stargates, like they didn't just take you to like other galaxies and other worlds in the universe, but they also just had quick, easy access to all the closer locations along the Nile River. The Anu lived in concentration in the inner earth and were also dispersed throughout the lands of Egypt and beyond. Through the inner passageways, Anu, from various locations, were brought to Akhenaten at Tel El Amarna for ascension initiation and training, and then taken secretly into the lower chambers of the Great Pyramid of Giza, where they could pass through the halls of Mente and return to Terra. Though the halls of Mente had been opened in 1374 BC, Akhenaten did not begin ascension practices until 1367 BC, when his sanctuary at Akhenaten had been prepared and his training with the priest of Ur had been completed. For 5 years between 1367 BC and 1362 BC, Akhenaten successfully trained and ascended several thousand people through the halls of Mente, secretly and without incident. Though the spiritual commitments left him little time or concern, little time or concern for more mundane earthly affairs and politics, which made him highly unpopular among general Egyptian populace, He was quite successful in fulfilling his purpose for incarnating on Earth and was held to a high esteem by the peoples of the inner Earth and the surface dwellers who understood the significance of his work. His success was, however, short-lived, as his less desirable character, learnings of arrogance, intolerance for the beliefs of others, and favoritism towards the Anu people brought an early end to his achievements, and ultimately created the major setback in the greater plan of preparing the races for mass ascension. Akhenaten is still primarily viewed as a master and revered avatar among descendants of the Melchizedek people who understand his purpose for his work on Earth. He deserves much credit for his achievements, realigning the genetic imprint of the Anu races and reintegrating their morphogenetic field into the sphere of Amentet. Though his general Earth mission was fulfilled, it is still worth mentioning, still worth mentioning the less than desirable events that colored his reign as pharaoh. Because of these events, the halls of Amentet were once again closed, and the quarantine under which races had evolved since 9540 BC remained in effect long after it was originally intended. Conflict between Sirius Egyptian Melchizedeks and Anu Melchizedeks and Akhenaten, opening the portal of the underworld, closing the halls of Amentet, guardianship of the Ark of the Covenant, transferred to Hybrial Cloister, deactivation of the rod and the staff, and the Templar Axion, seal, Tutankhamun, and Haramhab. This is 1362 BC through 1309 BC. Akhenaten successfully practiced the rites of ascension among the Anu population from 1367 BC to 1362 BC, following directives from the priest of Ur in the inner earth. Tensions began to mount between Akhenaten and the Ur priests when he was instructed to begin ascending other individuals not of the Anu lineage. In his original soul agreement, Akhenaten was to re-enter the Anu Melchizedek morphogenetic field back into the sphere of Amentet, see that the halls of Amentet were opened, then oversee the training and ascension of all individuals whose genetic codes would allow them to pass through the fifth dimensional frequencies into Terra. Sirius Egyptians and all of the other races were to be considered equally for this process, but Akhenaten from the beginning showed extreme favoritism towards people of the Anu descent and an unwarranted prejudice towards those of Sirius Egyptian lineage. To appease the priests of Ur, Akhenaten would allow select Sirius to enter into the initiation programs at Akhenaten, at Akhetaton, I think that's how you pronounce that, Akhetaton, but then systematically omit them from the final stages of training, so the opportunity of program completion and ascension was denied. The priest of Ur and the Elohim created an alternative plan by which the Melchizedek cloister keepers of the Blue Flame, who held strategic positions within Akhenaten's inner council, would be permitted to conduct ascension rites under the direction of the priests of Ur without Akhenaten's knowledge of their activities. The keepers of the Blue Flame were headed by the primary flame holder, a woman named Phalopia, who for long held the rank of high priestess at the Adonis temple in Akhetaton, I believe is how you pronounce that. So I guess that was a city, Akhenaten city. The inner circle of the Flame Keepers was composed of General Haramhab, head of Akhenaten's strategic armies of the north, the head physician of Akhenaten's court, and his illegitimate elder half-brother Sabbatoth, and his fourth wife, Ankhai, I believe is how you pronounce that, or Anki, historically known as Kaya. There were approximately 200 other members of the Blue Flame Melchizedeks among Akhenaten's ranks who had originally been sent to support him in his efforts. As his personal prejudice and intolerance of the Sirius Egyptians had colored his ability to fulfill his ascension duties appropriately, The blue flame Melchizedeks were assisted by the Elohim to carry out ascension by night, using an alternative portal passage to the Great Pyramid of Giza. Through the alternate route, the keepers of the blue flame would not have to pass through the portions of the inner earth through which Akhenaten conducted his ascensions, so both groups could fill the ascension contract while circumventing Akhenaten's personal character leanings. From 1363 BC to 1362 BC, the keepers of the blue flame led qualified Sirius Egyptians and others to the Ark of the Covenant at Giza, successfully ascending several hundred individuals not of Anu descent through the halls of Amente. In 1362 BC, the inevitable occurred, and Akhenaten discovered the activities of the keepers in the blue flame and charged identified members with treason and sentenced them to death. Among those sentenced to die were his fourth wife Anki and his half-brother Sabatoth, or Sabatoth. I think it's Sabatoth because there's one B. That's how you pronounce that. Sabatoth, or Sabitoth. With the assistance of the Elohim, these individuals were exiled to Giza and placed under the protection of a select group of Sirius Egyptian priests who had been permitted to know of the secrets of Amente. Akhenaten's fourth wife, Anki, had produced a son for Akhenaten in 1363 BC, and the child was later secretly taken to Giza by his mother and several other keepers of the blue flame. General Haramhab's affiliation with the keepers of the blue flame had not yet been discovered, and he remained an operative within Akhenaten's ranks, attempting to soften Akhenaten's wrath towards those whom he perceived as traitors. In 1362 BC, shortly after the child was taken from Akhenaten to Giza, a final confrontation took place between Akhenaten and the keepers of the blue flame. The confrontation took place within the hidden passage beneath Giza when Akhenaten and his men followed Haramhab through the alternative portal route and caught the keepers of the blue flame in their ascension practices. Using the staff, Akhenaten attempted to close the halls of Amente. The flame holder transmitted the Dimension 5 frequencies held within her body into Anki, who was to be the next flame holder. Anki transmitted the 5D frequencies of the flame into the sphere of Amente to counter the transmissions of the staff, forcing the halls to remain open. Akhenaten and Anki were held with a duel of energy, with the sphere of Amente between them. Sabatoth, Akhenaten's unrecognized half-brother, retrieved the rod instrument from Akhenaten's guard and activated the second dimensional frequencies of the rod in hope of knocking the staff from Akhenaten's grasp, fearing that the power duel taking place would destroy the sphere of Amente. In a brief moment, the course of intended history was changed as the second dimensional energy transmissions of the rod interacted with the fifth dimensional energy transmissions of the staff to create a double overtone frequency field. When the double overtone was struck, the energetic barrier around the sphere of Amente collapsed, opening the Dimension 2 Earth morphogenetic field into the sphere of Amente. This released the chaotic energies of soul fragments caught in Dimension 1 and Dimension 2, known as the Underworld, into the morphogenetic field of the sphere of Amente. The Elohim immediately intervened, descending through the Ark of the Covenant, releasing the sphere of Amente. Portions of the Amente morphogenic field had been contaminated by the chaotic forces of Dimension 2, and the Elohim had to separate the sphere of Amente, leaving the contaminated portions within the Dimension 2 Earth core morphogenetic field. The portions of the morphogenetic, the portions of the sphere that had not been compromised were placed back into the Ark of the Covenant in the UHF bands of Dimension 3, where the sphere of Amente was once again sealed. Because of these events, the halls of Amente were once again closed. The portions of Amente that remained in Earth's core stayed open, but the frequency bands of the Amente sphere that allowed passage into Terra were sealed away in the UHF bands of Dimension 3 within the Ark of the Covenant. On the evening when this confrontation occurred, all of the members of the conflicting parties were energetically altered and returned to their home in Akhenaten. In Akhetaton, having their memory of the night's proceedings erased. Now this is bizarre. I mean, so according to this, because you have all these spiritual teachers and all these freaking gurus and people meditating and shit, saying, "Oh, I'm going to meditate, positive thoughts, and I'm going to ascension. I'm going to ascend by raising my vibration." Well, according to this, you have to have access to some fucking top secret portal, advanced alien technology connected to Andromeda Galaxy that you can't freaking enter because it's inside a giant fucking pyramid with some pyramid priests guarding it. And if you try to go in and they don't like your freaking bloodline, they're going to discriminate against your ass. And I'm not sure like how much of this I fully believe, or how much of the other stuff I believe either. I mean, you got people saying, "Oh, I can just meditate my way into ascension." You got people saying, "Oh, there's going to be some solar flash, and the solar flash is going to change the vibrations, and we're all going to raise our frequency, and we're going to ascend." And then other people go, "Oh, Jesus is going to return and going to ascend." It's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And I just don't know how much I believe of all this stuff. All right, let's keep reading. Prior to this event, the Elohim and the priest of Ur had intended to orchestrate the ascension of Akhenaten, his first wife, Nefertiti, and the daughters. This was scheduled to occur after the seat of power had been transferred from Akhenaten to his fourth wife, Anki, and their son, through whom the half-brother Sabatoth would acquire the throne until the Avatar child came of age. The Avatar child, I think they were probably doing like, again, this sounds a lot to me like they were messing with like consciousness transfer kind of technology, and they fully understood like sending consciousness from one avatar body into the other. And then I do believe that the portals and the stargates and all that stuff is real. I think the military has probably reverse engineered this stuff and they're just using it in secret. And any of the ancient sites that have remnants of this technology, the military has just closed them all off, took it all, or it's still there and they're just guarding it and basically not letting anyone have it. Because now with all the military industrial complex and these secret private corporations that have been reverse engineering this stuff and have these $1 trillion budgets and things, they've got to already just have mastered and reverse engineered all this stuff. And it's like the technology to get, to ascend people or get people off planet or off world, whatever. It's out there. I just don't think they give it to any of the human slaves. Like I said, my theory is that humans have always just, for the most part, been a slave species with our consciousness suppressed, to keep us here at this low frequency and to keep us stuck, or to keep us slowly getting access to little tiny like bits of newer technology, but nothing like on the level of the portals and the TR-3Bs and the UFOs and the flying saucers and anti-gravity technology and the advanced energy and frequency technology like the Ankhs and all that. The human slaves are not allowed to have that. They'll have you stick to the next iPhone that comes out. That's about all you guys are getting. Sorry. The Elohim intentions were to blend the Atonist and Amonist perspectives together around the original Templar teachings of the Law of One, through which Egypt could be unified and serve as a model for preparing the races for ascension. Following the closing of the halls of Mente, this plan was no longer feasible, as the royals could not ascend to Terra while the sphere of Mente remained split in two, so alternative measures had to be taken. The Syrian Council had arranged for the royal family to be taken by starship to Sirius B after the transfer of earthly power, but Akhenaten did not live long enough to fulfill this vision. The Elohim and priests of Ur attempted to counsel Akhenaten following the closing of the halls of Amente, but he misunderstood their attempts at astral communication to represent attempted manipulation by evil forces. Having no memory of the Giza events, Akhenaten was swayed by the priest of Ur during physical contact to allow the flame keepers to go free. How did they erase their memory? That's what I want to know. I mean, they hint, the Hollywood film industry hinted at that technology when they released not the TV show, but the film called Men in Black, starring Will Smith and I forget the other guy's name, the older guy with the brown hair that played alongside Will Smith in Men in Black, and they would go around like. People would have interactions and see stuff happening with the aliens, the alien presence, and then their job was to go out and wipe all the memories of the people that were there to witness it, so that they couldn't tell everyone else. He was further advised to continue the plan to allow Anki to be appointed as wife number one, so the child would be given legitimacy as to the next heir to the pharaonic line. Events became a jumble of confusion as Akhenaten, fearing treason at every turn, chose to disregard the requests of the priests of Ur that ascension practices be stopped. This request was given in good measure, as anyone attempting to ascend through Mente while the sphere was broken into two pieces would find their soul essence fragmented in Dimension 2 and the upper portions of Dimension 3. Thinking that he was sparing the Anu from manipulation attempts by the priests of Ur, Akhenaten used the staff to access the alternative portal route to Giza and continued to ascend groups of Anu through the portals, not realizing he was sentencing them to soul fragmentation. So from what I understand, the whole soul fragmentation thing, and I mean, from the best of my understanding so far, reading into this, I'm sure it'll elaborate on this more, but the different dimensions or the different DNA strands are somehow correlated to this soul fragmenting thing, and you have people fragmenting their consciousness into these different avatar bodies in these different dimensions. And some of the avatar bodies have like different DNA strands activated, some of them less, some of them more. And they've all been like scattered apart across these different dimensions that are correlated to your DNA strands. And this attempt to unify everything is to bring everything back into alignment to where all the DNA strands are activated and we're fully capable of like operating in all these dimensions at once, I guess. Is that how it is? I mean, all right, let's keep reading. It was a little confusing at first with like all the when it was talking about like the DNA strands and the overtones and the ketones and the chelonic stuff and how like interrelated and meticulous it all was. Sabatoth discovered Akhenaten was using the halls of Amente, and so he, going against the advice of the other flame keepers, also continued ascension attempts for the Sirius Egyptian peoples. Sabatoth discovered that by using the Dimension 2 portal to access parallel Earth, through which people could merge consciousness with their antiparticle double and transmute their DNA, that passage into the halls of Mente could be made without the use of the staff or blue flame. Neither man realized they were sending people into fragmentation, and both believed they were assisting their own people who were being unfairly denied by the other side. The Elohim, again, intervened to stop these activities. The personal morphogenetic fields of individuals involved with ascension after the halls of Mente were removed from the sphere of a Mente morphogenetic field and placed within the third eye Horus portal, or portal passage, into the in the core of Sirius B, under the Templar Axion seal. This group included over 1,000 people who would be allowed to ascend to Terra as soul essences once the halls of Amente were reopened. But once there, they had to repeatedly incarnate on Earth until they had fully assembled the fragmented portions of their soul essence from the Dimension 2 elemental kingdom. Akhenaten and his half-brother Sebetoth and various others of the cloister Melchizedek and Sirius Egyptian lineage were among those placed under the Templar Axion seal. This sealing was again employed as a protective measure to ensure the remaining portions of the Amente sphere were not compromised by the misaligned energies of Dimension 2. But unfortunately, through generations following this lineage, portions of the Templar Axion seal were passed down indiscriminately throughout various racial families, and the Templar Axion seal became like a curse to the races, causing misalignment in various portions of the Amente sphere, which were further passed on through various genetic lines. These distortions in the sphere of Mente would have to be realigned with the 12-strand DNA imprint before anyone could again ascend through the halls of Amente. Suffering from confusion caused by the cumulative effects of these events, Akhenaten grew progressively more disinterested in the common affairs of Egypt and devoted his attention to ensuring the position of his son as the next heir to the throne. At this point, conspiratorial plans to remove Akhenaten from power brewed heavily within his own legions, promoted primarily by his uncle, the younger brother of Amenhotep the third, I think. His first wife, Nefertiti, found sympathy with the conspirators, as she did not take well to the intended transfer of her position of power, pending the validation of the son as heir. The Flamekeepers and Anki, which is wife number 4 from Nefertiti, blamed for destroying her family, appealed to Nefertiti for compliance, as the insistence of the priest of Ur. Unfortunately for all, Nefertiti could not muster the required humility, and in 1361 BC, she assisted the uncle in sabotaging Akhenaten's plans. The uncle orchestrated the assassination of Anki and Akhenaten's 2-year-old son, thereby leaving the issue of heir to the pharaonic throne open to the highest bidder. Distraught over the loss of his son and what he perceived as the failure of his earthly mission, Akhenaten withdrew from social interaction as General Haremhab, Sebetoth, and others devised a plan to remove Akhenaten from power to protect Egypt from Akhenaten's declining rule. In 1353 BC, with a heavy heart, General Haremhab turned a blind eye as Akhenaten's aged uncle led the final conspiracy, assassinating Akhenaten and arranging the temporary succession of Smekhkeri's husband. Let's try that again. Smekhkar, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Smenkari, who was the husband of Akhenaten's daughters, who secretly held a pro-Elminist outlook to the throne. Haremhab, Sebetoth, and the Keepers of the Blue Flame hoped to see Smenkari replaced by Sabaoth, but after the fall of Akhenaten's reign in 1353 BC, Sabaoth was imprisoned as a traitor in 1348 BC by the corrupt Syrian Egyptian priesthood at Thebes, with whom he had been raised in childhood, tortured for his knowledge of the secrets of the Ark of the Covenant, then executed in 1344 BC. Sabaoth left behind him a legacy within which lived the hope of the keepers of the blue flame. A child was born to Ihop I can't even freaking pronounce that. IHOP. We'll just call her IHOP from now on. The wife of Sabaoth. Several moments after he was incarnated in Thebes in 1348 BC, the child was named Tutankhamun. Haremhab and the keepers of the blue flame kept the child's true lineage hidden and orchestrated a marriage between this child and Akhenaten's third daughter, Akhensendpaten. In 1340 BC, Smenkari was assassinated by Haremhab's secret guard, and 8-year-old Tutankhamun was proclaimed pharaoh. In order to avert the suspicions of the Syrian priesthood, Haremhab arranged for the royal couple's initiation through the Syrian priesthood at Thebes, where their names were changed to Tutankhamun and Ankhesenamun. These names are a bit tricky here. Ankhesenamun. Tutankhamun acted as a puppet pharaoh under the direction of Haremhab and an older counselor priest named Aya, and the capital was again moved from Akhetaton to Tel Amarna to Memphis, so activities at Giza could be more closely monitored. Originally, Haremhab intended to uphold his commitments as keeper of the blue flame. This required a slow but steady integration of the belief systems of the Amonist and Atonist peoples. Under mounting pressure from the Syrian Egyptian priesthood at Thebes, Haremhab succumbed to taking action which appeared to be more politically correct, and the teachings of the Law of One became lost as he influenced Tutankhamun to abandon all of the Atonist sympathy and revert to old Amonist perspectives. Having loyalties to the keepers of the blue flame, Tutankhamun attempted to resist Haremhab's campaign. In 1331 BC, when a 17-year-old pharaoh, Tutankhamun, was suffering from an illness, several of Haremhab's advisors took matters into their own hands and poisoned him, removing the primary obstacle to Haremhab's new direction and ending the 9-year reign of Tutankhamun, the child king. That was 1340 through 1331 BC. Haremhab quickly appointed the aging Ea, a longtime friend of the Syrian Egyptian sympathizer, to the pharaonic throne. Falling hopelessly under the manipulation of the Syrian Egyptians' old order, Haremhab appointed himself pharaoh following the death of Aya in 1324 BC. In order to preserve his political standing, Haremhab methodically set about destroying any evidence of his prior affiliation with the Atonist movement and involvement with the cloister Melchizedek keepers of the blue flame. Haremhab reigned as pharaoh from 1324 BC until his death in 1309, appointing Ramses I as his successor. Following the death of Aya, I think it's Aya, in 1324 BC, the Melchizedek cloister keepers of the blue flame became scattered throughout Egypt, being considered criminals of the state for their prior affiliation with Akhenaten. Remember, I've been saying for a long time that the state, which is the government, which is statism, the religion where the government is God, this is where it all comes from. It was these extraterrestrial, I call them fake gods because none of them created the universe. They're just extraterrestrials with a shit ton of really crazy advanced technology like the Ark of the Covenant, the time portals, the freaking Sphere of Mente, and all this shit. And they just use that technology to, rule over everyone and get people to worship them. And then they're the ones that set up the government and the control systems and the banking systems and statism and the legal system, the language systems, the agriculture systems. Like everything we have was passed along from these extraterrestrials that had all the crazy technology and understood how to use the technology to launch a civilization. Some found refuge within the secret ranks of the Sirius priest at Giza, who still worked under the directive of the priests of Ur. By 1309 BC, the Elohim plans for opening the halls of Mente and preparing the races for the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD were lost between the chaos left in the wake of Akhenaten's clandestine rule. Okay, so that's why it didn't happen in 2017. They screwed it all up with their freaking portal that they had in the pyramid. Although Akhenaten was ultimately successful in re-entering the Anu people into the sphere of Mente and successfully orchestrating the ascension of many individuals during a brief reign, he left an equally detracting legacy of chaos behind him. Oh yes, that's the one we're stuck in. The halls of Mente were closed. The sphere of Mente was broken too, with part of the race morphogenetic field in chaotic shambles within the Dimension 2 Earth core, and the other part again quarantined in the UHF bands of the third dimension. The Ark of the Covenant was once again sealed, and the frequency fence which kept the sphere of Amente from descending through the Ark was once again put in place. Following the death of Tutankhamun in 1331 BC, the Elohim and the priests of Ur, disheartened by the error of the human element, transferred surface guardianship of the Ark of the Covenant out of the Egyptian hands. The Ark of the Covenant was placed under the protection of the Hebrew cloister races under the supervision of the Blue Flame Melchizedeks. The rod and the staff were deactivated, and thus entry into the portals of the inner earth was stripped away from all races within the surface cultures. Okay, so the next part here is called The Three Christs. Elohim and the Syrian Council favoritism towards Syrian genetic strains and promotion of patriarchal Templar Creed distortion, Palladian, Arcturian, and Andromeda resistance, and Azorites appointed by Raw Confederacy as co-guardians of Palladorian Covenant, divisions with the Cloister Melchizedeks and Essene Brotherhood. 1240 BC through 12 BC. Well, this book is getting a lot more interesting as we get into it. The first chapter was kind of repetitive and a little boring. But now that we're getting into all this stuff, this is all very in alignment with, all the other books that I've read, the ones on this channel, and even the ones I haven't read audiobook style, but it's kind of referenced sometimes. From the Emerald Tablets of Thoth to the Mauro Biglino and his translations of the Anunnaki and doing the genetic experiments, and even the stuff about the Book of Mormon and how DNA and genealogy records were always super important in the religion of Mormonism. Well, this is why. This is why in Salt Lake City, Utah, they have that massive genealogy library where you can go in and input your genealogy, and then they'll try to help you expand their records of everything. And then in the mountains, they have that giant vault built into the side of the mountain that's designed to withstand a nuclear bomb, that no visitors are allowed. And they have all that stuff there. It all makes perfect sense. It all makes perfect sense when you've read everything, the Book of Mormon, you read the biblical mythology, the Talmud and all that stuff, and then the ancient Egyptian stuff, the Anunnaki stuff, the Freemason stuff, the Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, the Aztec, the Mayan. It all traces back to this obsession with DNA and genealogy and the compartmentalization of advanced technology and racism and favoritism. And it's still going on today. This is not stopped. It's an ongoing thing. The chaos which resulted from the misfortunes of Akhenaten's reign also created a major division within the ranks of the Elohim and of Harmonic Universe 3. The Syrian Council of Harmonic Universe 2 and the Ra Confederacy from the Metagalactic Core. Dispute arose as to what should be done with the program of human evolution. The majority of Elohim had abandoned their loyalty to the human races in general and saved their attention for Anu Melchizedek's and Hebrew peoples to come, or to whom they had closer genetic ties. In the years following Akhenaten's demise, the Elohim and Syrian Council began showing their favoritism of these groups by purposely influencing the developing cultures to adopt the distorted Templar creed. We have a little footnote here. It says, some historical sources suggest that Akhenaten reigned from 1355 through 1335 BC and placed Tutankhamun's reign from 1333 through 1323 BC. Speakers on the Syrian Council provided the dates 1370 through 1353 BC for Akhenaten's reign and 1340 through 1331 BC for Tutankhamun. They request that I leave the dates as they have given. I cannot personally attest to the accuracy of either set of dates. They believe that by promoting male dominance within the races, which was already a rampart distortion promoted by the corrupt Syrian or Cyrus Egypt line, the course of interbreeding could be controlled. By controlling the women breeders and influencing a male elite to practice interracial discrimination, the Elohim's preferred lineage of humans could be kept genetically pure. This is where all the racism comes from to this day. It all has to do with aliens doing genetic experiments, creating different bloodlines, different hybrids, and then those hybrids intermingling over the millennia. Like, if you ever, find groups of people that are like super freaking racist, like really hardcore racism, like neo-Nazi guys, like the higher ups in those organizations, like they know all this. That's why they believe in their ideology so heavily, is because they understand the true history of this universe and of this earth world and the extraterrestrials and the aliens and the advanced races and the bloodlines. They know all this. Like, when you get really deep into these racist cults, they've been grandfathered into this knowledge for a very long time. These selected chosen ones would be given special privilege of ascension if they followed the teachings of the Elohim altered Templar creed. The Elohim had basically given up on the rest of the human population and made no attempt to assist in the general populace in realigning the damage done to their genetic codes through the propagation of the Templar Axion seal. Oh, sorry, it froze up a bit there. Okay, we're back. I mean, this is all very in alignment, too, with all the stuff we've already read and gone over many times on my channel about how the biblical god Yahweh is just one of the Anunnaki, who is also known as Enlil by the Sumerians and also known as Zeus by the Greeks. And, I mean, he's been depopulating and playing favoritism and killing off other tribes for thousands of years. And even to this day, the Yahweh cult, like, that's all of the control systems and the military-industrial complex and all the conflict in the Middle East and all the stuff going on with Israel, and all, that's all the Yahweh cult. Like, his power structure is still very prominent here. Other members of the Elohim, Pleiadian Star League Council, Andromeda and Arcturian Federations felt this preferential treatment was unfair and appealed to the Ra Confederacy for intervention. The Ra Confederacy agreed that this treatment was discriminatory and detrimental to the human evolution plan, or evolutionary plan. In 700 BC, the Azurite family of the Ra Confederacy was called into operation as primary protectors of the Covenant of Pallador, And though willing to work with the biased Elohim, the Azarites were given an equal hand in the orchestration of human evolution. Their primary concern was to realign the morphogenetic field of the sphere of Amente, reintegrate all of the races who had been removed, and prepare the races for another opening of the halls of Mente to be scheduled in coincidence with the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD. The Azarites and Elohim worked together through the Melchizedek cloister, establishing the Essene Brotherhood about 1240 BC, which was originally designed to bring the undistorted Templar teachings of the Law of One back into manifestation on Earth. The Essenes were originally one of the 25 families within the Melchizedek cloister race. Members of this family were interbred with the Hebrew cloister races to create a hybrid Hebrew strain. The Essenes thus had two primary racial divisions, those of the Melchizedek cloister and those of the Hebrew mixed cloister lineage. Within several generations, the biased Elohim took the project in their own direction, interbreeding with some of the cloister Melchizedek families, with the Hebrew Melchizedeks and promoting the patriarchal Templar Creed, which became the primary focus of the Essene Brotherhood teachings. By 1150 BC, the priests of Ur disassociated themselves from the primary families of the Essene Brotherhood and began working with the few select families within the Essenes and the Hebrew and Melchizedek cloisters. These families were chosen to reintegrate the undistorted, pure Templar teachings and to work directly with the priest of Ur to ensure the race preparation for Ascension Wave of 2017 AD. In 700 BC, the Raw Confederacy gave the Azarites equal directive control over human evolution and appointed them primary guardians of the Covenant of Pallador. The Azarites began their work on Earth through the Essenes of the priests of Ur in 1906 BC. The Azarites and the Syrian Council attempted to mend the growing rift within the Melchizedek families by combining the previous teachings of the Melchizedek priesthood with the evolving doctrines of the patriarchal and purist Melchizedeks. The original Melchizedek priesthood, as it exists today, was founded on surface Earth in 1928 BC, prior to Akhenaten's reign, within the Hebrew cloister race in the area of Salem, which became Jerusalem. An extraterrestrial Nephilim, and in parentheses it says an immortal Syrian human hybrid from the second seeding period, was brought to Earth from Nibiru in 1979 BC, carrying a patriarchal version of the Templar Creed, which allowed knowledge of ascension and genetic protection to reach the Hebrew and Aryan races. This individual became known as Melchizedek, King of Salem. The foundations for the modern-day Jewish religion were laid at this time with the establishment of the priesthood of Melchizedek among the Hebrew, and Aryan races, through which the mystical studies of the original Kabbalah were organized. In 1906 BC, some success was achieved in consolidating the Templar teachings by combining the old Templar Melchizedek doctrine with those of the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes and the Templar Melchizedek Essenes. Despite this achievement, two primary covert divisions within the Essene Brotherhood remained. The Melchizedeks and Hebrew Essenes, who were under the influence of the patriarchal Elohim, were known as the Templar Melchizedeks. I wonder if this is the same as the Knights Templar, like where the Knights Templar came from, if that is part, it's got to be the Templar Melchizedek. It's got to have some kind of connection. I don't think this book has mentioned the Knights Templar yet, but I'm assuming this is connected to it somehow, if that's not what it is. They were primary descendants of Hebrew Melchizedeks who received the Templar seal in 8000 BC and whose morphogenetic fields still remain in Alcyon, not yet reintegrated into the sphere of Amente. This group emphasized the patriarchal slant of the Templar Creed within the Jewish faith and heavily influenced the evolution of the Christian faiths. The Templar Melchizedek Essenes were taught by the Elohim to believe that they were God's chosen people, and that they held the keys to ascension. The covert group of cloister Melchizedeks within the Essene Brotherhood who worked secretly with the priest of Ur under the Azurite Council were primarily descendants of the Blue Flame pure cloister family Melchizedeks. The Blue Flame Melchizedeks had not received the Templar seal in 8000 BC, and their morphogenetic field remained in the sphere of Amente. Protection of the Ark of the Covenant and the secrets of Amente had been placed with the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes by the Azurite Council. The Blue Flame Melchizedeks taught the original, non-patriarchal, egalitarian creed of the undistorted Templar Creed, including the sacred teachings of the science of ascension, the reality of reincarnation and extraterrestrial ancestry, and the precepts of unity consciousness and the sacred law of one. FYI, like, you can order the book. There's a whole book called The Law of One, and it's written by Ra, and it's said to be channeled. And someone it's all the channels or the channeling of the Ra entity. I have a copy of it. I got it back, I think, in like 2018. I should probably open it back up and go over it a little bit more, since it's very it's kind of one of the key. I mean, this entire book right here, this is the Law of One, is like what it's mostly about. The two groups coexisted with each other within the Essene Brotherhood until 12 BC, when the Azurite Council orchestrated the next major event in preparing the races for ascension. Okay, the next part here is entitled Reintegration of the Races into and Restoration of the Sphere of Amente, the Three Christs, the Zionites, and preparation for 2017 AD. And this is 12 BC through 2022 AD. Well, looks like we're getting closer and closer to present time in this book. I mean, it looks like we still got quite a long ways to go in this book. I don't even think we're... it looks like we're just barely about a 1/4 of the way done with this book. So, I mean, I do plan to just finish it and keep recording it. This is pretty interesting and very incongruent with all the other stuff, and confirming of all the other stuff that I've been talking about on this channel for like the past decade. The Azurite Council knew that in order for the races to be prepared for the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD, the integrity of the Sphere of Mente must be restored by realigning the portions of the sphere trapped within the Dimension 2 Earth morphogenetic field. The Alcyon morphogenetic field of Templar Melchizedeks and those that received the Templar Axion seal during Akhenaten's reign and were stored in Sirius B also needed to be reintegrated into the Sphere of Amente. Despite the failures of Akhenaten's campaign, he had successfully reintegrated the Anu peoples into the Sphere of Amente morphogenetic field, so a similar arrangement was made in reference to the Templar and Templar Axion seal race families. This time, not only would the races be restored to their place with Amente, the entire sphere of Amente would be realigned with the original 12-strand DNA pattern. Realignment of the sphere of Amente would allow all of the races to heal their genetic distortions in preparation for the opening of the halls of Amente, and would restore the integrity of the sphere of Amente so the halls of Amente could be opened. This realignment project would require the services of a 12th level avatar, whose energetic imprint contained the alignment of the 12 dimensional frequencies. This 12th level avatar was to realign the sphere of Amente and the Alcyon morphogenetic field of the Templar seal Hebrew and Anu Melchizedeks, and he was intended to bring together the factions within the Essenes that had developed within the Melchizedek and Hebrew cloisters. He would also re-enter the original egalitarian Templar creed back into the teachings of the Essenes. Under the directions of Azurites of the Ra Confederacy in 12 BC, the 12th level avatar, a pure Terran Turanusium 1 soul essence, was born outside of Bethlehem in a private residence to a blue flame Melchizedek Hebrew Essene mother and a blue flame Melchizedek Hebrew cloister Essene father. So this is where we get into the mythology of Yeshua, who later erroneously became known as Jesus Christ after some religious political hustlers rebranded him. But yeah, this is the Yeshua, the Yeshua birth. It was not an immaculate conception, but rather an orchestrated via traditional means through a couple chosen and prepared by the priests of Ur. His mother's name was Judy, and his father's Johias. Both were leaders within the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essene sect. The child's soul essence was born of the harmonic universe 4 avatar Sananda, and the child was named Jeshua Melchizedek. From what I understand, like, the J wasn't included in the alphabet until hundreds and hundreds of years later, so technically back then it would have been the Yeshua Melchizedek is how you would have pronounced that. And this is herein Yeshua 12, who later became known as Jesus. Oh yeah, there we go. Yep, everything I've been saying for a long time. Son of Mary and Joseph. You see, the names always got. I've been saying this for like years. Like the names got mixed up over time. And I've talked about this so much, and all the Christians, they get in the comments on like TikTok and stuff, and they start bitching and whining, complaining, and telling me I'm demon possessed, I'm gonna go to hell, and I'm a blasphemer. And it's like, are you people that freaking stupid? You can't just study a little bit of history and figure out some basic etymology? Emotionally triggered Christians, they get so emotionally triggered when something doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? When something doesn't align with their religious dogmas and superstitions, which for the most part are all nonsense, they get super emotionally triggered. All right, let's continue. The personages of Mary and Joseph were not the parents of this avatar child. Oh, no, don't tell that to the Christians. They're going to shit themselves. They were parents of a ninth level avatar soon to follow. Yeshua 12 was born to descendants of the house of Solomon and taken to infancy into custody of the priest of Ur. Yeah, this is a much different narrative than the Christian corporate religious industrial complex is trying to get everyone to believe in. I mean, to me, this makes way more sense. In 7 BC, the Elohim orchestrated the birth of a ninth level avatar who would serve to reintegrate the Templar Axion sealed souls of Sirius B back into the sphere of Amente and restructure the patriarchal Templar creed to be more reflective of the law of one. Yeah, that's where you get the teachings of Yeshua, a.k.a. Jesus Christ, which is the golden rule: treat other people how you want to be treated. Don't hurt other people. Don't fuck with other people. Leave other people alone. And he would also teach, like, we're all connected. God is, well, quote-unquote God, which is just the source energy of the universe, is within. It's not some outside third-party deity that you have to worship. But they actually took this guy and this whole story and turned him into an outside third-party deity that Christians worship. And a lot of other religions worship. Because they're too stupid to question this shit. They just blindly believe it. This child was named Yeshua. Herein, Yeshua 9. And the stories of the birth to the Hebrew Melchizedek Essene, Mary and Joseph, are recorded as the birth of Jesus in a contemporary Christian doctrine. Yeshua was born of an immaculate, Yeshua was not born of an immaculate conception either. Oh, yeah, they'll get super pissed. You start reading this to them. But rather, through the visitation of an extraterrestrial Nephilim. Oh my God, this is like exactly what I've been saying for freaking years and gotten so much hate for it. But rather through the visitation, so this is freaking alien abduction of an extraterrestrial Nephilim who, like King Melchizedek, was part of the entity named Jehovah. The entity Jehovah, who was one of the original contributors of the creation of the Syrian Anunnaki races of Harmonic Universe 2, had worked with the Elohim since the time of the Treaty of El Anu 848,000 years ago. Yeshua's mother, Mary, was also born of an extraterrestrial Nephilim conception. Following the events of Akhenaten's reign, the Elohim did not want knowledge of extraterrestrial ancestry available to the general human populations. So the truth of Yeshua's birth was hidden within the story of an immaculate conception. Through the centuries that followed the births of two avatars, the life stories of Yeshua 12 and Yeshua 9, plus another man who was not an avatar, became consolidated into one personage called Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. With the birth of Yeshua 12, the 12th level avatar, the Hebrew and Melchizedek morphogenetic field in El Sayon was reintegrated into the sphere of Amente. Through Yeshua 12, the integrity of the Hebrew Melchizedek's genetic imprint was restored, and he became known by some as a quote-unquote savior of the Jewish peoples for this reason. You hear that? It just had to do with some strategic breeding and DNA strands. It doesn't have to do with saying a magical prayer and donating money to the church. The portions of the Amente sphere that had been trapped within Earth's Dimension 2 morphogenetic field as a result of Akhenaten's reign were realigned with the integrity of the sphere of Amente was once again restored. In a greater sense, Yeshua 12 became the savior for their races, for through his birth the halls of Amente could once again be opened. The realigned sphere of Amente was kept in storage with the UHF bands of Dimension 3, now under protection of the Azarites of the Ra Confederacy. At age 20, which was 8 AD, following the study in Persia and India, Yeshua was taken to Egypt by the priest of Ur at the Great Pyramid of Giza, while Yeshua 12 was between 20 and 33 years of age, which is 8 AD through 21 AD. He and the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essene secretly orchestrated ascension for various groups directly through the portal passage of the Ark of the Covenant. Ascensions conducted while the halls of Mente were closed could only be done through the energy field of a 12th level avatar whose bioenergetic field could carry the energy fields of others through the seals on the sphere of Mente. Through the energy fields of the avatar people could pass through the Ark of the Covenant into the Blue Flame on Terra's morphogenetic field into Terra. Through Yeshua 12, the Hebrew Essene races that followed the Blue Flame Cloister Melchizedek Essenes were appointed by the Azarites of Ra to share guardianship of the Ark of the Covenant with the Melchizedek and Hibiru cloisters. The descendants of these groups presently carry the full 12-strand DNA package with their genetic codes, or their gene codes. As this group was one of those chosen in 1972 AD to receive the full genetic realignment through interaction with the time-traveling hybrid Zionite race, and this is see Voyagers 1, okay, because this is Volume 2, so I guess there's a Volume 1 also. The Zionites were created during the present-day Zeta infiltration and were sent back into time to realign certain ancestral groups with the 12-strand DNA imprint in order to accelerate the evolution of present-day humans. And that's very interesting. So, you always hear people talk about these, indigo kids and starseed kids and volunteers, like Dolores Cannon says. I mean, technically, according to this, if you're one of those, you're like a time traveler, potentially. The followers and descendants of Yeshua 12 Essenes were one of the groups chosen for this realignment. Groups involved with Zionite genetic restructuring are considered to be of celestial human lineage, as they carry the full 12-strand DNA silicate matrix within their operational genetic codes, regardless of their primary race line. You know how there was that big genealogy company called 23andMe, and they ran all these marketing campaigns to get all these people to just input their data, and then it got bought up by BlackRock hedge fund. Like all those big hedge funds, these trillion-dollar hedge funds, like these are all like controlled by these extraterrestrial races. You know that, right? And that's why they're so obsessed with DNA and genealogy, and they launch these huge companies and finance massively these companies like 23andMe, these genealogy record companies, and try to get everyone to input their genealogy, and then they get bought up. They get bought up and consolidated by the most powerful entities in the whole world. This is why they want to know who has these 12-strand DNA activations. They want to know who's incarnating and who is a threat to their power structure, because anyone who is aware of this stuff, anyone who is activating their DNA strands, we are all a threat to their power structure. That's why all these religions and 23andMe and all these corporations, they're investing hell of freaking money, and they go out of their way to build these huge vaults and shit to keep track of the DNA and the genealogy, is because they want to know who is incarnating and what they're capable of doing, and whether or not, which part of these groups they're in. Are they the freaking the Anu Melchizedek? Are they the Hybaru cloister? Whose side are they on? That's why they want full control and transparency of the incarnating souls and their DNA and their lineage. It's a war. The silicate matrix appears within family lines as a recessive gene composite, which remains dormant until it is called into activation via opening of the chakra centers 8 through 15. Various groups within the root races 3 through 5 and cloister races 3 through 6, among the several other hybrid race strains, were chosen for this genetic realignment, so the silicate matrix is distributed at random throughout present-day human genetic lines. Okay, that's interesting. Let's read that again. Various groups within the root races 3 through 5 and cloister races 3 through 6, along with several other hybrid race strains, were chosen for this genetic realignment. So the silicate matrix is distributed at random throughout present-day human genetic lines. That's why, again, what I just said about 23andMe and the big hedge funds buying it up and running all these marketing campaigns to get everyone to input. So basically what's happening right now is this agenda to realign humanity in its evolutionary process and get everyone's DNA turned back on. They've actually done it in a way now to where it's just randomly happening with people incarnating everywhere, and that's why these controllers are pushing so hard for 23andMe and the registering of your DNA and your thumbprints and collecting these, and even with the whole the COVID-19 hoax and the pandemic thing, getting everyone's blood. Doing all the samples and the tests. Like they take all those samples when you get a blood test, they take it all, and they keep a big database of everyone's DNA, because they're trying to keep track on who is who and in this war, and who's coming down here, who's a threat, who's gonna continue to realign the DNA of everyone. It all makes perfect sense now. What a trip. The greatest concentrations can be found within the Hebrew, Melchizedek, Aryan, East Indian, and Tibetan racial lines. During the period that Jehovah 12 practiced in Egypt, 8 AD through 21 AD, the second Christ, Yeshua 9, grew in popularity among the families of the Templar Melchizedeks and Hebrew Melchizedeks who were not aware of or interested in the birth of Yeshua 12. Yeshua 9 was also taken to Egypt for initiation, ascension training, and ordination as a Melchizedek priest. And portions of these rites were conducted by Yeshua 12 prior to his ordination in Egypt. Yeshua 9 had traveled throughout Nepal, Greece, Syria, Persia, and Tibet, training in various interfaith doctrines. Yeshua 12 studied primarily in India and Persia before coming to Egypt at age 20 and his Templar teaching showed a stronger Eastern orientation than those of Yeshua 9. The training and ascension activities of Yeshua 12 and the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes remained primarily hidden and practiced as a secret mystery school within Egypt at Giza and in various other locations. Yeah, these are where all the mystery schools come from. The teachings of Yeshua 9 become more well-known, which caused him progressively more prosecution from Roman influence, also within some factions of the Hebrew and Templar Melchizedek race lines who did not accept deviations from the original patriarchal Templar creed as set within the Jewish religion by King Melchizedek. When Yeshua 9 was 32 years old, which is in 25 AD, the assistants of supportive Templar Melchizedek Essenes and Elohim exiled Yeshua 9, his wife, the woman that came to be known as Mary Magdalene in the biblical reference, and their 3 children to the territories of France. Oh, there's another one that Christians don't like to hear about. Yes. Yeshua, a.k.a. Jesus, had children. To avoid political persecution. So they dipped out to France to avoid political persecution. Another man by the name of Arihabi, who was a Jerusalem-born Hebrew Anu Melchizedek, was led by the Elohim through a series of visions to believe that he was the true Yeshua 9, and this man, who was crucified. Okay, so the real Yeshua, a.k.a. Jesus, he wasn't even crucified. It was someone completely different, according to this narrative. Neither of the Avatar Christs were crucified, and both of them left genetic family lines within the Hebrew Melchizedek races. The sacrifice of Arihabi was orchestrated to divert attention away from Yeshua 9, his family, and his lineage. The resurrection of the body of Christ, Arihabi, was orchestrated by the Elohim through the use of holographic inserts, but Arihabi was indeed resurrected following the holographic display. In return for his assistance in diverting attention from Yeshua 9, the body of Arihabi was restored to life by the Elohim, even though he was not an avatar. He was then taken to India, where he lived for another 30 years. Upon his natural death, Arihabi's soul essence was ascended to Sirius B through the third eye of Horus Portal Bridge. After his ascension to Sirius B, the Elohim granted him special favor and adjusted his energy field so he could ascend to the Sirius star system in Harmonic Universe 2 via the planetary core of Sirius A in Harmonic Universe 1. The story of Jesus Christ as it is known in contemporary times evolved through the mythology the Elohim used to conceal the identity of their avatar, Yeshua 9, and to perpetuate their patriarchal slant on the Templar Creed. The distortions of the true facts of history were used to protect the lineage of Yeshua 9 from the political persecution, making it appear as if the Christ had no descendants, thereby allowing those descendants to remain obscured from public view. I mean, that's pretty smart, if you ask me. The teachings of Yeshua 9 and the Templar Melchizedeks became the primary foundations for both contemporary Jewish and Christian faiths. But the Jewish religion did not acknowledge Yeshua 9 as their savior. In truth, Yeshua 12 was the true savior of the Hebrew peoples, for he re-entered their race morphogenetic field into the sphere of Amenti. Few people knew Yeshua 12, or of Yeshua 12 in his Blue Flame Melchizedek Essene Ascension School, so the majority of the Hebrew people did not realize that their foretold Messiah had indeed arrived. Even though Yeshua 12's accomplishments went unnoticed by the majority of the Hebrew people, his effect on the restoration of their genetic development was valid, an unseen gift to the Hebrew people for which Yeshua 12 did not receive credit. Between 8 and 21 AD, while Yeshua 12 practiced ascension rites at Giza, several expeditions were made by Yeshua 12 and the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes. They traveled throughout Egypt and Nubia and into Jerusalem, promoting the original Templar teachings of ascension and gathering groups of people to take to the Giza for ascension. Plans were made to perpetuate the Yeshua 12 lineage, which carried the full 12-strand DNA imprint, and 6 women of various Melchizedek cloister subraces were chosen to bring forth the children of Yeshua 12, the first Christ. Couples were chosen to serve as guardians of these children. Each of the 6 females to receive the seed of Yeshua 12 was matched to a male blue flame Melchizedek, who would serve as adoptive father to the child of Yeshua 12. Yeshua 12 did not interact directly with the raising of these children, nor did he serve as husband to any of the 6 women chosen to carry his seed. The children were created through sacred procreative rites for the sole purpose of perpetuating the 12-strand DNA pattern within the human races. Descendants of these children became spread throughout various regions, some appearing within the French aristocracies, others within the Celtic, Egyptian, and African genetic lines. Out of the descendants of Yeshua 12 now resides within the continental United States. Of the 6 families of Yeshua 12 that were seeded between 18 AD and 23 AD, 5 of the children survived to bring the 12-strand DNA lineage into the contemporary human gene pool. The lineage of Yeshua 9's 3 children also prospered and spread throughout the various nations to the present day. In his later years, Yeshua 9 traveled to Tibet, where, with the help of the Elohim, he ascended out of matter in 47 AD to harmonic universe 3 through the portion of Terra's morphogenetic field stored within the planetary core of Venus. He ascended out of matter. I mean, what, did he just freaking like teleport? Like disappear? I mean, it talks about some of these people doing this in the book Autobiography of a Yogi. I think it was written in like the 1950s by Paramahansa Yogananda. And he talks about some of these ascended yogi masters being able to literally do exactly what is being described here, like ascend out of matter. This ascension passage requires a 10th strand DNA imprint and is thus not available to most humans without direct assistance and DNA reconstruction by the Elohim, Azarites, or other harmonic universe 2 guardian groups. The teachings of Yeshua 12 were highly censored by the Templar Melchizedeks, who later came into political prominence and were kept alive through the secret mystery schools that evolved throughout Europe, Egypt, and the Middle East, and in certain parts of China and Indonesia. The teachings of the Yeshua 12 were originally included in the manuscripts that became the Christian Bible, but were distorted or edited entirely at various times to suit the need of the power elite within the evolving political religious machine. Wow. Who's been saying that for a freaking decade? Me. And I think I'm the first one to call it the corporate religious industrial complex. And then I've always said it was all ran by political hustlers. Well, I mean, this book affirms everything I've been saying. Eventually, the teachings were banned by the early Christian churches, for they disclosed the identity and tactics of the Elohim and other ET groups and told of the divisions within the Melchizedek Templar Creed. Very few of the original Yeshua 12 teachings have survived into the present time, though there are remnants of these teachings secretly preserved in France that will one day be discovered. I mean, have they been discovered yet? Remember, this book was written in 2003. The original teachings of Yeshua 9 were also distorted and misrepresented through political and religious structures of various times. The teachings of contemporary Christianity, though they provide a basic structure upon which social organization and spiritual initiation can be built, reflect little of the depth, content, or meaning of the original teachings of the Avatar Christs. Following the establishment of Yeshua 12's lineage, 18 through 23 AD, the Avatar had completed his work on Earth. The Blue Flame Melchizedeks carried on his teaching legacy and became the primary keepers of the secrets of the Ark of the Covenant and the Sphere of Amente, various groups were assigned various portions of the whole story, with no one group having the entire chronology of teachings of Yeshua 12. Yeshua 12 left Earth through the Ark of the Covenant at 39 years of age in 27 AD. He did not die, but rather bodily ascended to Terra and has since evolved far beyond the confines of physical matter. The Ark of the Covenant was resealed within the UHF bands of Dimension 3 following his ascension, awaiting the time when Earth's grid rose high enough in vibration to allow for the return of the Sphere of Amente, which was scheduled to occur before the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD. The Azurite Council Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds and their many supporters maintained a stance of non-interference following the success of Yeshua 12's mission. They allowed the Elohim and various other host matrix families to direct the course of earthly events as they desired, knowing that the truth of the Templar and Law of One, as upheld by the Blue Flame Melchizedeks and Priest of Or, would eventually come to light within the evolving human consciousness. The Azurites planned to wait until the return of the Sphere of Mente to Earth's core before bringing this knowledge back into the public domain, and in the meantime hoped to unite the Melchizedeks within their teachings, or within the teachings, of the sacred Law of One. Though Yeshua 12 had successfully aligned the race morphogenic fields at Amente with the original 12-strand DNA imprint, most of the races still carried traces of genetic distortions from the Templar and Templar Axion seals, which would need to be cleared prior to the opening of the halls of Amente. The Elohim, Templar Melchizedeks, Blue Flame Melchizedeks, and other unrelated host matrix groups have assisted and continue to assist many individuals in clearing their genetic codes in preparation for ascension. All present-day ideologies that teach conscious evolution and DNA activation and transmutation are geared towards this purpose, including the new information currently being provided by various guardian extraterrestrial and metaterrestrial forces. Yeshua 12, the 12th level Turanusium avatar from Terra, fulfilled his purpose on Earth. Through him, the Sphere of Mente was made ready for re-entry into Earth's core, following which the halls of Amente could eventually be opened. The race morphogenetic field had been reunited, so following the opening of the halls of Amente, all souls could again ascend through Amente once their genetic imprint had evolved to assemble the 4th and 5th DNA strand. The plan for preparing the races for the 2017 AD Ascension wave was put back on schedule. Since 27 AD, when the avatar Yeshua 12 ascended, the races of Earth evolved under the primary influence of the Elohim and various other host matrix groups not associated with the Christian and Jewish perspectives. Through the achievements of Yeshua 12 and Yeshua 9, the primary morphogenetic imprint for all the races was returned to the Sphere of Amente, and the Sphere of Amente was once again made whole. These accomplishments set the stage for mass ascension, but the races still had a long way to go in healing and evolving their consciousness and genetic codes. The frequency fence quarantine UHF Dimension 3 seal still blocked Earth from open relationships with interstellar communities. The Ark of the Covenant D5, or Dimension 5 security seal, kept by the Melchizedek race strains from bodily ascension, the races still carried portions of the Amente seal, and in parentheses it says DNA strands 1, 2, and 3 mutation, antiparticle, quote-unquote, death seal. The Palladorian seal, which is DNA strands 2 and 3 mutation, dimensional 4 seal. The Templar seal, DNA strands 2, 4, and 5 mutation, dimension 6 seal. And the Templar Axion seal, DNA strands 1, 5, and 6 mutation, dimension 7 seal, and the quote-unquote 666 seal. Within their genetic codes, and the memory of the human lineage still remained locked away within the sphere of Amente in the UHF band of the third dimension. These conditions would have to evolve and heal before humanity could be prepared to face the ascension wave of 2017 AD. Throughout the evolution of the races, guardian races attempted to awaken humanity to the reality of its evolutionary destiny. All of the major Earth religions were seeded at one time or another by guardian groups to help the races prepare for their eventual ascension out of Harmonic Universe 1. Though the teachings are often quite different or seemingly contradictory, all of the religions have suffered manipulation and distortion at the hands of man and covert intruder extraterrestrial forces. They are united through their original purpose of achieving ascension and freedom from the illusions of matter. The secrets of Amente were ultimately kept under the protection of the blue flame cloistral Melchizedeks and the Hebrew Essenes who followed them, but the reality of Amente belongs to all of the races all the races and world religions. The sphere of Amente, Ark of the Covenant, and halls of Amente represent the manifestation of a covenant of Palador, which holds the evolutionary promise and progression for all races of human lineage. It is the promise of humanity returning to the integrity of the immortal God being that is the original morphogenetic imprint of the human race. The promise of ascension is the hidden heritage and legacy of human condition, the fulfillment of humanity's evolutionary blueprint. And that is the end of Chapter 5. What do you think? Is that do you guys find that interesting? What do you think about all that? I mean, it's pretty incongruent and in alignment with all the other stuff. I mean, even you read people like Paul Wallace, Gerald Clark, who talk about this stuff and the teachings, the mystery schools, even people like Billy Carson. I mean, this all is a lot of confirmation on a lot of other stuff out there, especially the book like The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. I mean, all this stuff just confirms, again, that there's something going on with the extraterrestrials and the DNA and the bloodlines and the interventions and the suppression of advanced technology, like I've been saying for a very long time. All right, we're going to continue in another upload.